Hey everybody, Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for Gamingtrend.com. If you're like me, you know that struggling with audio capture is probably the biggest pain of all video production. You can have some pretty messy video, but if your audio is terrible, people are gone. Today we're going to check out the Boyamic 2 from Boya. It is a AI-driven device, and please don't click off just yet. I'm a big believer in non-predatory AI use, and this may be one of the best uses yet. So let's unbox this thing and take a closer look. Now, all of the stuff you hear from now on is all captured on the Boyamic 2. In fact, so is the intro, because I have two of them. Now, there's a reason why I have two of them, but we'll have to get a little further into this for me to tell you why. So let's unbox this and show you what's inside the box. There are a couple of configurations that you can get. There's one that's simply receivers, does not have the transmitter. It's almost like DJI's offering where you have just the transmitters, but you don't have the receiver. Maybe you don't need the range. Or some of the additional features. I'm going to tell you up front, you might want to grab the receiver. There's a couple of reasons why that receiver is really useful, and we'll get into those. Inside the box, we obviously have the device itself. It'd be kind of a useless unboxing if it was not in the box. And it comes in this kind of wavy case with four little lights on here that indicate whether or not it is charging and to what level. You can see the lights are on now. This one's fully charged. There are a couple of other aces up that sleeve that we'll get to. We also have all of the accessories you could possibly want for all the different ways that you can use this device. And there are actually quite a few. Boya is aiming for maximum compatibility with this device. And it's something that we actually saw with one of their other devices, the Boya Link 3. Now, we're not going to get into why they need to change their naming convention because that's confusing, but the Boya Link 3 is a really good beginner level device. The Boyamic 2 is more of an enterprise level device, and we'll get into those differences as we go. Unpacked, we have the device itself. We'll get back to that. We have this nice carrying case, and as I mentioned, there's three different configuration levels for this microphone. This particular one comes with two lavaliers, which have the little caps that you can throw on, or if you're inclined, you've got these little dead cats you can throw on there. These have a little clip on them, so you can clip them directly onto these. You can see there's a little jack right there. These go right on top of the jack, like so. Like so, I said. I do like the magnetic ones a little better, but these work pretty good. They just go right into the audio jack. So you've got the little fuzzy hat. So we'll pop that off, set those aside. Two of those dead cats, or wind screens if you prefer. Two of the little foamies. These are not just the foamies, they actually have a hard case or semi-hard flexible case that can go over the top, so you're not fighting with getting those on top. The aforementioned lavaliers. I don't know the quality on these in terms of their receivers. I don't know, the capture portion of this. I guess it'd be the capsule. I'll throw that up on the screen because I'll have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. But two of those. This would be how you're going to connect it if you needed to use a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You would use this in the case of like a DSLR camera where you don't necessarily have a way to connect it via USB. Not all DSLR cameras are capable of that. If you do have one, or if you're connecting it maybe to a phone, then you would use a USB-C to USB-C connector, or something we'll get to in just a second. Two little clips. If you want to clip the microphones on with these little alligator clips, you can do that. I should say, if you want to clip the lavaliers on with the alligator clips, you can do that. I still prefer a magnetic system to clip a lavalier on. I don't like clipping things to people's clothes. For one, way too intimate, way too fiddly. And if you mess up somebody's clothes, you've ruined your interview because all they're going to think about is how messed up their shirt is. I don't recommend it. All right, the device itself. So here's where some of these things start to come together. Oh, I should mention, there's a nice carrying case bag. It's a nice soft bag to throw all of this together. I personally put all the accessories in the bag and then leave this separate. Taking this out, you'll see there are a number of features that will kind of come to life as we go. I'm going to turn on the receiver. I should say the transmitter. I always get these backwards. It's going to pop up and say Boya. We're going to pull off the little plastic screen, set that aside, and you see it has an LED screen. Now, the Boyamic, I'm going to do this over and over. The Boya Link 3 does not have a screen, and that was one of the things that I didn't like in my review. You use these LEDs to kind of determine the overall level of connectivity or volume. I personally prefer something with a screen. There's a lot of utility in that, and we'll get to that as we go. When you pull these out, you'll see that immediately they start blinking. I'm going to take the little plastic doojobbies off of these too. As soon as we turn them on, they're going to start blinking, and immediately you'll see they're paired. They're ready to go. That's already picking up audio. As soon as I fire this one up, it's going to adjust the screen. Now you've got two audio sources right there. No pairing necessary. These were ready to go right out of the gate. And that's great. You can pull these out and they're ready to go. Also, when you throw them back in here, watch how fast this comes back to life. If you're on a shoot and you need to very quickly capture a impromptu interview, pull these out, pull this out, 3, 2, 1. I couldn't even count to 3 and it was ready to go. These are ready to go instantly, and that is amazing. Also included, I forgot to grab it. I do actually have the second adapter here. There's a adapter for Thunderbolt. So if you're an Apple user, you've got that there, and they do store in here. And if you are an Android user, then you have the USB-C. This should be a familiar looking system to you if you've used a Lavalier recently. We're going to pull this off as well. All these little things to protect it. You can see it says lock and unlock. This goes on here. I know how this works, allegedly. All right, and then it's going to rotate into position. When it's rotated into position, it popped up and says plugged. And then to use this on something like a phone, I simply plug it into the bottom. And it's done, it's ready to go. My phone has now switched to using that. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up a audio video here. It went ahead and switched to the microphone immediately. I didn't have to go make that change. Normally I have to make that change inside my phone. So it's nice that these things are getting smarter or maybe the phone's getting smarter to the point where you don't have to fight with this and it's ready to go almost as fast as the device is ready to go. But it's as simple as plugging it in. As I mentioned, that 3.5, you would plug it in here. I'll just be transparent. I'm actually capturing in 3.5 over to my A10 Mini Pro ISO, which is my capture device that's over here on the right. It does not accept USB-C, so I use that 3.5. And as I mentioned, if you're using Thunderbolt, you can simply do that. One of the things that I do like, rather than take this off over and over and over and risk possibly damaging that socket, there is a little inlet here, this little well that this can sit in, and when you put this away, it sits in there with that attached. So I don't use Thunderbolt devices, or if you use Thunderbolt, you probably don't use USB-C. So you can leave that attached, no wear and tear. You pull it out, you're ready to go. You can plug it into whatever device you need, you're off to the races. So back to this device. As I mentioned, this is a touchscreen. It's 1.4-inch AMOLED touchscreen, and you have all the settings that you could possibly want are in here. There's your transmit settings, your receiver settings, your display settings, language, date and time, factory reset, version, because yes, you can update these. There are firmware updates periodically, and the date and time is important because you're going to use that to synchronize when you are using this with whatever editing software you're going to use. There's also this little inlet button over here. I keep using the wrong words here. Inset button over here. It's kind of flat with the rest of the device, but you can use it to rotate through all of your options rather than touching the screen, which I appreciate. Touch that button there, the power button, and it goes back to this main screen. And as I mentioned, it's a touch screen, but what have I done here? I've locked it. So there are options here. You can see the little locks down here. There are options where you can make sure that you don't mess up your capture on accident. I simply enabled the lock and re-enabled it, and disable it with this button here. So press that, no problems. Press that, now I can get back into the device. Swiping from the left, you see there's a record button. There is a microphone symbol there, and then this symbol here. This symbol is noise cancellation. Now, you probably can't hear it, but I certainly can. My air conditioner is running right over there, and it is making a hell of a racket. These completely isolate those out. You should not hear that at all on your side. Turning on that noise cancellation, you can turn it on 3 different levels, and it will either aggressively or just in a minor way reduce the overall noise. It also has an additional functionality that I found kind of amazing. And I usually only see this on devices like shooting ears. So you can get ear protection for shooting that will detect something like a gunshot, and it will suppress that so you don't hear that gunshot, but you can still hear everything around you. And it uses a similar technique by kind of sampling the ambient sound. It has onboard processing, that's that AI part, and it will capture that and eliminate it so you don't hear that in your final device, your Final Cut or your DaVinci Resolve or whatever else. So back to this. This second one here is simply mute. So when we want to mute, you can simply do that. There are ways that you can do that on the device itself. There's a button that says record. There's another one for power, and then that one's for noise cancellation, but I don't remember which one it is exactly, but one of them you double tap it and it mutes it. You double tap, or you can tap up to 3 times on noise cancellation for the 3 levels I mentioned, off, minor, major. And then record, you double tap that, and it takes a picture on your phone or any other device if you can program it that way. I think you can long press to start a recording. So you got to obviously have some smarts on the other side. That's not going to work for something like a DSLR, but it does work well for a phone. All right, the last one is the big differentiator between this device and this one. Onboard recording. So it has 8 gigs of onboard storage. And where these record in 24-bit, these are 32. Now that's not to say that the band is entirely 32 bits wide. That's not how this works. In my full review, I'll explain kind of the intricacies of how 32-bit processing works and what a float is, but long story short, you have a band that is 24 bits wide for audio, and then in a 32-bit device, you have the extra 8 bits to handle volume, where something like this, all 24 bits are included in that one band, including volume. So you lose some of the upper and lower range, and you also lose some of the fine-grained control over your volume. In your phone, or on any other sort of device that you want to use for touchscreen, you also have Boya Central. And Boya Central is going to let you connect to your various Boya devices, add device. You can find the device in here, or if you simply plug it in, it will detect it, in theory. Remember how I mentioned about firmware updates? There we go. Allow it to access. And there we go. Boyamic 2. It says that it's connected. It's ready to go. Transmitter 2 connected. Shows plugged in. When I bring it up, you can see that I have all of my various controls. So output gain, speaker, mono, AINC, so we're going to turn on that noise cancellation that I mentioned. You can do that in here. There's weak and strong. Record, you can start recording from here, and you can see there is the transmit, testing, test, test. Testing, test, test. You can mute from here. You can see your battery levels. You can see your transmit levels. With this device, you'll have about 300 meters of distance, so you can go quite a ways away from your capture device, regardless of what it is, and still capture audio. Output gain, this is useful if you're in a noisy space and you want to pump up those voices. You would use a combination of noise cancellation and adjusting your output gain up or down. Mono and speaker, this is going to be for your safety track. The safety track is a little like what I was describing, where if you suddenly have a burst of sound, you can use that safety track to be able to pull that down, because it does suppress it by a certain amount. So you have a lot of these great features inside this, this system here, and you can see that you can do it by transmitter. Transmitter 1 and transmitter 2. Unlike the Boya Link 3, the Boyamic 2 has onboard recording, and you can see right there, I've got 15 hours of onboard recording for these devices. I don't know about you, but I don't want to talk for 15 hours. It's nice to have that kind of battery life though. Now that we're inside the settings, you can see all of the things that you could normally control with this transmitter, with the receiver. I will do that this entire review, I'm sure. Within the receiver, you can change inside this application, and that includes your output gain. You can see the transmit 1 and 2, so you can see volume levels. You can adjust that mic gain up and down, so if you're not getting enough volume out of somebody, you can simply bump that up. Maybe you have somebody that's just very soft-spoken. Noise cancellation are done per transmitter, so if you need more on one side than the other, maybe somebody's closer to a crowd than the other. Recording, that's going to be that local recording, so you can record up to 15 hours under current settings on this. Depending on whether you're using noise cancellation or not, you'll see that that goes from 15 hours. We're going to turn on strong noise cancellation and local recording. Okay, maybe it's actually not going to make too much of a difference. But you would, in theory, lose a little bit of your overall recording time because there's going to be a little bit more time at that float to account for the additional volume control and that kind of thing. So your file size would be slightly larger, is the point. All right, back to this. Going into the settings, you can see these are your transmit settings. This is simply what's being displayed. The transmit indicator, auto recording, 32-bit float, auto gain, transmit lock, auto lock. So I can turn these things on and say, I want to be able to see that on the device itself. So it says there 32-bit, which tells me I'm doing a 32-bit float recording. Transmit indicator, again, it's going to indicate, I'm just going to kind of turn them all on here. You'll see all those things kind of appear. So this can get kind of busy if you turn everything on. The next thing in here is the EQ. Now obviously you're going to want to adjust your audio so it fits your space. This particular space is not a huge space, so I don't have to adjust it very much, but inside the EQ you can make adjustments, and maybe you want to add more bass or you want to adjust certain frequencies. You can do that in here and make a custom profile for yourself. Or inside EQ, you'll see the most common, which is vocal boost, low cut 150, and then custom. Under transmit settings, you have, again, recommendations based on the type of camera. Now, my Blackmagic 6K comes out extraordinarily quiet, so camera presets can help with that. You can go into the brand here and see it's not a huge list: Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fujifilm, and Panasonic. So not my Blackmagic, but I can probably find something that's close. And then underneath model, you'll find the various models of those cameras. Brightness, display time, RX auto off, and RX date and time. That's going to be on the receiver itself, how bright this is, whether it turns off over time to save battery. And then the date and time is obviously your synchronization portion. So this is a pretty powerful application. I'm not usually a huge fan of keeping applications running while you're using a camera, but this is pretty useful, especially if you find yourself behind the camera instead of in front. As a producer, this is very useful. Plus, you can plug in your headset right into the side of the Boyamic 2 and do your monitoring right in your ear, all from here without having to use the speakers and possibly end up picking up double audio on your recording. All that said, before you get started, you probably should start here, and that is device upgrade. So this is going to show you your various devices firmware level, which all three of them have separate firmwares. You hit device upgrade, it's going to tell you what needs upgrades, upgrade now, and it's going to grab those firmware updates and push them automatically. So pretty useful to keep your devices up to scratch. Boya has done a really good job of pushing firmware updates fairly frequently to fix bugs, but also to add features that are requested by users. So they're a very active community from what I've seen. I've used a number of these Boya devices through my career, and I'm always impressed with the software, which for a hardware company, that's pretty great. So all this unboxed, I've been using it for a while. There's one last feature that makes this a must-have for anyone that's doing any sort of video production, and that's a pretty big thing. There are a lot of microphones out there. I've got plenty of them sitting around myself. Here's one from Saramonic. I'm sure these guys love it when I mention their competitors. But Rode, Saramonic, all these other companies have one feature that's missing, and these guys have cracked it. What happens if I need more than 2 of these? Now, in the past, I've done kind of the candlestick method. There's a microphone that I can kind of stick this on the end. DJI does the same thing, and you're handing this microphone around, and you kind of do the whole broadcaster thing. You end up with one of these on you, and then the other person has a stick that they pass around. Now, if you have a larger group, that's problematic. Here, you don't have to do that. So pulling up the transmitter, of course I go to pull it out and it's actually connected to my camera. Pulling out the transmitter, when you go into the pairing section, there is a reason why there is a pair section. That pair section allows you to pair it with other transmitters. You can put up to 4 of these transmitters together for 8 devices. So you can hook this up to 8 different devices and have 8 different audio sources, all able to talk to the camera at the same time and capture at the same time. That synchronization happens on the other end. All those things are going to waveform together. I have tried it, it works. So if you are going to an interview and you have 8 people or even 6 or 3 people, well, obviously that's more than 2, and that's going to do you a big favor. The last stop on any of our reviews is always price and warranty. Now, a couple of devices that I've reviewed recently have a warranty that is, and I cannot believe I'm going to say this, 30 days. 30. If you find yourself warrantying your hardware for 30 days, that tells me as a consumer that you have no faith in your product. I'm glad to say that's not the case here. Boyamic covers their devices for 2 years. So you know that no matter what happens with this device, you've got coverage. I've also taken the opportunity in the last couple of weeks to test out support. I reached out to their support team. Now, you're talking about a team that's in China, so there is a bit of a time difference. But you're basically leaving a message on their website, or you can send them an email or log a ticket. And I've done all 3. Most of the time I got the best response out of hitting them up on chat, and then they got back to me. I installed WhatsApp and I had a conversation with them over WhatsApp, and we solved the problems that I had almost instantly. In both cases, it was update your firmware. So their support team, very, very helpful, very, very responsive. They speak English very well, or at least the ones that I dealt with. So if you're concerned about overseas coverage, don't be. The other part is price. Now, I'm going to bring this up just because it's a good comparison point. The Boyamic 3 is $119, and when you put it against the competitors that I've mentioned by name, some of their devices are 3 times that amount. This Boya device also has the same trick. I can take these receivers and I can wire them together. So I could get 4 devices on this one, and I can get 8 devices on this one. So if you need multiple devices, you do have options. You could buy 2 of these and still be under the price of their competitor. Now, this other Boya device, the Boyamic 2, obviously it comes with a whole host of additional features. The ability to plug in a lavalier, the ability to have that 32-bit float, having onboard recording. All that's going to cost a little bit extra. How much extra? Well, at the bottom end, without the case and charging via USB and without the lavaliers, maybe you have your own, I want to say it's $129. There's a device set up like this that does not have these lavaliers but has everything else, and that's $179. As configured right here with everything you see, that's going to be $199. So depending on what you need for your setup, maybe you need some things more than others. Take your pick, pick the one that you want. Or in the case of most users, you're going to pick one that has all the bells and whistles, and then you're going to pick a second one that has a receiver and a charging case. So that way you have the option to have multiple receivers, but maybe you don't need all of this stuff for the second setup. So you have options, and to see the pricing so reasonable that you could buy it twice and still not be as expensive as something maybe coming from Rode or especially DJI, that's a pretty great thing. I spent the last couple of weeks with these devices, both setups, and I took them to one of the noisiest places on earth, Disney World. And I also took it to Universal Studios. Took it on rides, didn't matter. That noise cancellation, especially the strong noise cancellation, removed any and all noise from the area, all the screaming, everything else. I was able to get really good audio. We were able to record a wand ceremony at Universal Studios, and we were able to capture all the sounds and the effects in the room and not any of the outside noise, you know, people inside the shops and stuff. So it was great to be able to just capture what I wanted and tune out the rest. Additionally, I was able to move through crowds, and I was able to hear my family because they had the other microphones. So I was able to capture these moments. I had a very rare opportunity where I got to meet some new family members, people that I had never gotten to know in my life. We have a completely new family that joined my family. My wife found her adoptive sister and her whole family. So getting to have them as a part of my life and then getting to capture those moments. They'd never been on a roller coaster. I got to capture those moments. That's what I buy this stuff for. That's what I spend the money for. I want to be able to capture those things and keep them forever. And knowing that I can do that when I only get one shot to capture it, that makes it worth the money to me. So I would love to tell you that there's something wrong here. I'd love to be able to say, you know, maybe it's not worth that price, but when I look at the memories that I captured, worth every penny. Hell, it'd be worth it at twice the price. I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for Gamingtrend.com. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments, what other devices do you use? Do you have a Boyamic device or do you have a similar capture device? What do you capture on it? And what sort of cameras do you connect it to? Thanks for watching. We'll see you again very soon.